All right, let's take a trip. We're going to spend a simulated 24 hours on the dark web, but forget everything you've seen in the movies, the high-speed hacks and shadowy deals. We're here to break down what it's actually like to spend a full day in these hidden corners of the internet, separating that Hollywood fantasy from what is, frankly, a pretty exhausting reality. Yeah, so the first thing we gotta do is just toss out that whole pop culture image. The myth is this slick, super fast world where anything is possible in an instant. The reality? It's a lot more like trying to use the internet back in 1998, but, with way more risk. The source material calls it an exhausting 24-hour exercise. And that feeling of exhaustion, it starts the second you try to connect. You see, your biggest and most constant enemy on the dark web isn't some secret agent or a shadowy hacker. Nope, it's the loading bar. The very thing that's designed to keep you anonymous is also what turns the entire experience into a serious test of your patience. So how does this whole thing even work? Well, it all runs on something called the onion router, or Tor. Basically, your internet connection gets wrapped in a bunch of encryption layers, just like an onion, and then it's bounced through a random chain of computers all over the world. This is what hides your identity, but man, does it come at a cost. And that cost is speed. And that number 3 you see, that's the bare minimum number of stops your connection makes. Just imagine it. Your request to open one web page has to travel from your computer to a server in, say, Germany, then get rerouted through Brazil, then maybe off to Japan, before it finally gets where it's going. That crazy journey is exactly why everything is so slow. And what does all that bouncing around get you? Well, this. We're talking 10 to 30 seconds for a single page to load. And I'm not talking about a 4K video stream. I'm talking about a simple page of text. Can you imagine trying to get anything done when every single click means you're just staring at a blank screen for half a minute? Patience isn't just a good idea here. It's an absolute necessity. Oh, and on top of the snail's pace, there's another huge problem. Things are always breaking. Unlike the regular web, where sites can be up for years, those .onion addresses on the dark web disappear all the time. So a huge part of your 24 hours would literally be spent clicking on links that just lead to nowhere. It adds a whole new layer of frustration to the waiting game. Okay, so let's say you've got the patience of a saint, and you actually get a few pages to load. What do you find? What would you actually see during this 24-hour session? Well, it's probably not what you're thinking. It is a really, really strange mix. The content you'd run into is just bizarre. You have totally normal, even genuinely useful stuff, sitting right alongside illegal marketplaces and some of the most disturbing things you can imagine. It's not just one thing, not by a long shot. It's this chaotic jumble of the internet's best intentions and its absolute worst impulses. And this is super important to understand. The dark web has a legitimate, even vital purpose. For journalists or activists living under regimes with heavy censorship, it's a lifeline. It's a way they can get to blocked sites like Facebook or the New York Times, or securely drop off information to places like the CIA's whistleblower portal. This is the side of the dark web you never see in the movies, but it's arguably its most important function. And then, of course, you'd find the infamous illegal markets. But what our source material really highlights is that the most unsettling part isn't just what's for sale, it's how it's for sale. These sites are built to look and feel just like Amazon, with shopping carts, seller ratings, and customer reviews. It's this casual, business-as-usual presentation of deeply illegal things that is so profoundly disturbing. And then there's the truly dark stuff. With almost no moderation, you're always just a few clicks away from content that is incredibly illegal and genuinely traumatizing. The source puts it perfectly, describing the mental fatigue that comes from seeing this unfiltered side of humanity. It's a pretty stark reminder of what the internet looks like with absolutely no filter, for better and for worse. So, as the hours of your 24-hour sessions start to tick by, that frustration and mental fatigue begin to mix with a totally new feeling, paranoia. Because the threats aren't just about what you might see on the screen, they're about what's happening behind it, targeting you and your computer. You've basically got two huge traps to watch out for. First are malicious scripts. Some sites are just digital landmines. Just visiting them can trigger an attack that tries to expose who you are or lock up your files with ransomware. The second trap is something called a honeypot. These are fake illegal websites run by law enforcement designed specifically to log anyone who visits. And this really gets to the heart of the problem, right? You never, ever really know who's on the other side of the screen. Is that illegal marketplace you stumbled upon run by a criminal gang? Or is it a sting operation run by the FBI? This constant nagging uncertainty is exactly what fuels that paranoia. Okay, so our 24 hours are up. The clock has run out. After navigating all those dead ends, sitting through glacial loading speeds, and witnessing that wild mix of content, all while trying to dodge technical traps, what's the final verdict? Well, you definitely wouldn't emerge feeling like some master hacker from a spy thriller. According to our source material, you'd feel three main things: physically drained from the constant waiting, paranoid from the constant risk, and honestly, pretty bored from all the dead ends. It's a surprisingly anticlimactic and just plain tiring experience. I think this metaphor from the source just nails it. The dark web isn't some secret, organized underworld. It really is more like a chaotic, broken library where half the books are gone, a good chunk of what's left are traps, and everything else is written in the language of scams. So, at the end of the day, who is this technology really for? Well, it's an absolutely essential tool for a very specific group of people: journalists, activists, people who need that anonymity to do their work safely. For them, it is a lifeline. But for the casual person who's just curious and looking for a thrill, it's a really high-risk, low-reward place to be. And that kind of leaves us with one final big question to think about. When you really look at the reality of it, the extreme slowness, the disturbing content, the very real technical dangers, is a casual trip into the internet's basement really worth the risk? That's the crucial question you have to ask yourself before letting curiosity take over.